Morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, I'd like to thank the BFBi for facilitating this event for us. We've been members of the BFBi for decades, and thank you to Daniil for organising this, and Ruth obviously for chairing the organisation. We believe it's important to support the local organisations, particularly in years that we currently seem to be going through. So hopefully the two topics that we're presenting on today, maximising your return on investment and equipment, and benchmarking, will be of interest. The two presenters are myself. I'm head of UK operations for NIRAS Food and Beverage in the UK, and my colleague Kevin Saunders, who I'll hand over to you halfway through, will be talking to you about benchmarking. Won't spend too long on NIRAS, but we are a multidisciplinary engineering consultancy, and we've got an ever-expanding existence in the UK and around the world. We operate in 54 out of 54 offices in 31 countries, and we've got a particular specialisation in food and beverage. We believe that this gives us good credentials in order to speak on the topics today, especially the benchmarking, and our free to use and participate in NIRAS Brew benchmarking club, which is industry leading. If I skip through to we've got a very strong, prominent position in delivering sustainable solutions, and the expertise that we have within the organisation, the experience that we have working very closely with our clients, food and beverage clients throughout the world, gives us a very good insight into good practice. Right, onto the subject at hand, getting the most out of your equipment investment. I think it's a good reflection initially to look back on what issues could arise, and when researching the topic, came across some good information in terms of some of the contributors to investment delays, and I think we'll all those in the industry will recognise some of those contributing factors, such as a change in mid-scope. I think this is particularly prominent because if I think about my time in the industry, I think the ever-changing marketplace now is creating a chaotic effect in project execution. I'm conscious that there's changing in pack formats, there's changing in process, there's changing in products, and getting those to the marketplace as quickly as possible is key in order to get the market leading position which a lot of the manufacturers seek. So I do sympathise. However, sometimes I think we don't do ourselves any favours in terms of how we manage the process. Another key contributor, poor estimates in the planning phase. I think, again, how often do we get that phone call when somebody asks us, how much do you think this is going to cost? And we're talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds in some case. Resourcing is another key contributor, and planning. But again, I think we can all of these resonate with impacts that will have an effect on how we execute, and ultimately how much value we get out of our investment. A lot of what we'll talk about today might come across as simple, obvious, but I think we're driving to have a structure within how we execute our investment. Again, if we look at what we believe are the primary causes of failed investments, again, we will recognise some of those as well. So a change in organisations' priorities, changing project objectives, inaccurate requirements gathering, opportunities of risk were not defined, inadequate vision or goal for the project. I think we all anticipate and all understand that during the life cycle of a project, there will be change. That is inevitable. But it's how we manage that change profile that will ultimately lead to the success or otherwise of that project. And I think that's key to that getting the structure that we just talked about. A statistic that I unearthed during the research was in 2019 we invested in the UK food and beverage industry. We invested nearly £1 billion in the investments, various greenfield, brownfield investments, and on average 12% of that was actually effectively wasted during by poor performance. So if we can have a more structured approach and front end weight, and what I mean by front end weighting, hopefully that will come through in the next couple of slides, is put sufficient planning in place in the first instance. We within NIRAS certainly believe that you will get more benefit out of the investment. So the three topics we're going to touch on this morning are planning, committing to the plan, and lines of communication and roles within the project and the investment organisation, making sure that they're clear. So if we talk about the planning phase at the moment, we have a structured document which typically involves what we call a master plan for a client site. In that master plan, the client maintains that on a regular basis and revisits to see where he is on that journey. He evaluates that. He knows it's going to change because new products, new profiles, new SKUs will come along, but he maintains that document quite rigidly in order to ensure that he is tracking against that plan. Now, whether or not it's called a master plan, whether or not it's called an investment schedule, whether or not it's called a site development, somebody will have ownership of that plan. And I think it's key when we touch on the organisation that again, clear lines of communication, understanding of roles and responsibilities. But in the plan, the milestones are clear. And it allows advanced planning and the securing of a harmonious development of plant facilities. Now, what do we mean by that? It means that we look at things holistically. We look to see if we've got the right utilities in the right place. We look at how we develop the site. Do you develop the site with a central utility spine and then work away from that? Where is our next investment going to be on site, so we don't landlock certain areas of site because of poor planning or footprint or cost savings that might cost more in the cost less in the short term and more in the long term. So it's a clear master plan that allows the site to grow or change. And we have an execution model for the investments, which takes us through the 6 phases, and all the note that I made before about loading the front end. We spend most of the time on our projects with our clients. We guide them towards spending time and effort at the front end on the basis that it will save time, effort, cost, and improve production ramp up at the back end. So we spend a lot of time on the analysis and the planning and design phases. It doing so allows us to move forward quite swiftly and efficiently through the tendering and contracting, the execution, testing, acceptance, and the operation phase. And we don't just stop there as well. We obviously carry on through the life cycle of the investment. We review it on a regular basis in terms of optimization to ensure that the asset that we've invested in is operating as efficiently as it was handed over initially. Just got a couple of charts here to show where potential savings could be gleaned. So again, in the analysis phase, we believe that the greatest amount of opportunity exists for savings on your project. In fact, our first mantra will be, do you actually need to invest? Are there ways of manipulating the existing assets in order to avoid that investment? If that isn't the case, then we work through a stage gate process in order to review the options that are available. Value engineering is something which automatically happens. We don't really consider value engineering as a post-investment review opportunity. We'd like to think that value engineering is part and parcel of how we execute the investment profile. We definitely believe that ad hoc engineering adds cost and adds complexity to a process. So again, working through the various phases, you can see that you get a diminishing return on potential savings moving into the manufacturing and the execution phasing. We are definitely an advocate of an engineering house, an engineering consultancy, and an OEM working harmoniously together. We believe that OEMs obviously invest a lot of time and effort in R&D, and there are a lot of benefits of liaising, working with, investing in OEM equipment. We believe the impartiality and the flexibility and the independence of working with an engineering consultancy such as ourselves, such as Lorien, such as Briggs, Malone, ABM, and bigger engineering consultancies are Arcadis and Arups and all the other companies out there, will ultimately deliver the overall best solution for clients, obviously depending on the type of project as well. Again, we are very much of the opinion that working with local contractors and gaining local knowledge, opening effective lines of communication, both with the client, local organization, will ultimately deliver a benefit. And also, we think about the overall investment and what will the landscape look like after the investment? How efficient will it be for the client in order to continue operating his assets after it's installed? As we said at the bottom of that graphic there, we believe that the initial CapEx is only half of the picture before the client takes it over and runs the plant. So what do we mean by committing? I think project management, design engineering, project management is largely an undervalued source and largely underestimated when it comes to undertaking your investment. On average, a significant 6-figure, 7-figure investment will take up to 75% of a project manager's time over the course of the actual action. It will prove dividends in the end, in order to allocate the right amount of time and get the right resource onto the project, in order to reap benefits at the end. And again, we firmly believe that by investing at the front end in the people, not only reviewing the process and looking at the process completely holistically and end to end. What we mean by that is, look at the type of suppliers that you want to work with at the end, and maybe modifying your approach in order to interface with those suppliers in the most mutually attractive way. And again, you don't want to get to the end of your tendering and contracting process to find that you've got very few tenderers that are willing to either sign up to your contract or sign up to the scope or take on the risk or any of the above. So it really is looking at who can you work with, who are your partners, who are the OEMs that might be interested, how might you package things up, are civils part of it, are utilities part of it, is the process part of it, is packaging part of it? Are there any suppliers out there that are willing to take on all four? Do you debundle in order to only work with 3 or 4? We are definitely a great advocate of minimal interfaces between bundles in order to de-risk, because again, more interfaces mean there's a greater degree of management that's needed. So I think it really is a lot of planning activities in the front end in order to get most benefit at the back end. A little interesting note there at the bottom about the right people, getting the right people on board as well. Again, we'll talk about roles, stakeholder engagement, lines of communication, which again are very important contributors to successful delivery. A common misnomer, as much work that we can do at the front end as possible, as much detail that we can put in either conceptual design phase or the basic design phase, we guarantee that you will have more questions from suppliers, either OEMs or mechanical electrical contractors or anybody for that matter, after the contracts are let than beforehand. So we on the journey that we're on through the investment process, we believe that it's key to make sure that the team are available through the entire process, because there will be questions coming out. There will be design evolution. There will be things in the ground that we come across that will mean that certain legs have to move on structures into certain places, and this is inevitable. And it's all change and structured management that needs to take place in order for us all to understand how we got from the start of the journey to the end of the journey, and to avoid that finger pointing process that sometimes comes up. So again, engineering follow-up, as we call it, we believe is key in order to evolve the process through from tendering and contracting through to commencement on site and into the testing, commissioning, and handover phase. We touched about we've talked about roles. It's, I think, the project organisation and an organogram with clear lines of communication defined at the start or the earliest opportunity, recognising that people come and go, and the management of that is key. So who are the people in authority? who are the stakeholders, who's the sponsor, and making sure that the communication plan is shared with the whole team, so that it is clear as to who ultimately has the responsibility and who can make decisions. Again, we've put some there's very basic outline plan there, but as we can see, we've got a sponsor, we've got a project manager, so that sort of suggests to me that we've got two points of senior communication within this organization, which I think is good. You've got holidays, you've got illness, you've got disputes that always need to be managed. And then we've just got the very simple layout of the process, packaging, utilities and civils, and that can be ultimately defined to the nth degree with design and engineering teams and commissioning teams for all of those. And as everybody's aware, with 6 and 7 figure investments, you can have a significant 15 to 20 to 30 person team over the life cycle of the project, depending on the level of complexity. But it's clear with it, it's very important that those lines of communication are made clear at the start in the organization, so that everybody coming into it, regardless of where they come into it, either from the client side or from the contracting side, understands the lines of responsibility and who's contracted to deliver what. I mentioned before about interfaces. Again, it's that there aren't many companies that actually execute civils, process, packaging and utility projects. I think the landscape is changing. Companies such as ourselves do actually execute such projects, but we don't have a manufacturing base. So that's why I mentioned about key to develop a relationship with OEMs and have that very healthy spar between the two of those in terms of value for money and getting the right technical solution on behalf of the client. But having fewer interfaces certainly makes it easier for clients to work with and execute projects, and de-risks that investment from a client perspective. So that's my slides this morning on return on investment. I'll now hand over to my colleague Kevin Saunders, that will take control of the screen and talk to you about benchmarking. So Kev, over to you.
Hello, thanks Nick. I don't think I'm sharing correctly. Hold on. Yes, so today I want to talk to you about the NIRAS Brewing Benchmark Club. And the presentation we're going to go through was first transmitted by our colleagues in August this year. So the question we want to address today is, what is the NIRAS Brewing Benchmarking Club? And here's some key points. First, it's free for participants, but you do have to submit your data to be part of the club. That's how the data is collected. You need to submit your data to be part of the club and be part of the club to review the data. The data is kept, it's anonymous and it's confidential. It's not freely accessible even within NIRAS. It's treated with the appropriate care and respect. To date, we have over 200 breweries participating, so quite a good global coverage across those areas. The breweries participating account for around 350 million hectolitres of production, so a significant volume. The club, it's an online thing, so it's always available, so you can go on at any time for reference when you need to. We like to think it's a dynamic solution. So you have freedom to explore and compare the data in different ways, which is something that I want to show you today. So the vision for the club, to expand the knowledge base of the global beer and beverage industry, improving its efficiency and reducing the environmental impact. And that's key. So we want to provide the individual breweries with fact-based benchmarking of key performance indicators, and that allows us as engineers and consultants to provide insights and trends on efficiency levels, environmental impact, and we'll look at some insights towards the end. So this is also providing a general status of the brewing industry, and it gives an opportunity for the members to compare how they are doing against other members. And through that comparison, it's possible for you to perhaps see where there might be opportunities to focus on improving. And it can be used motivationally as well. So, you know, you want to be the best in class generally. And you can sometimes validate how well you are doing by comparison. So at the top end, there's some quite high level sorts that we have to do. So the pictures here is showing the geographical sort. So we've got the Americas, Europe, Africa, and Asia Pacific as different groups which we can sort on. You can sort on the whole of the geography as you can on the brewery size. And on the right hand side, you can see the size definitions. It's up to 100,000 hectolitres a year, 100,000 to 1 million, million to 3 million, and above 3 million. And what are the key performance indicators that we're looking at? Well, there's 7 have been chosen, and they've been chosen. They relate to the main cost drivers in the breweries. So it's of huge importance to us that we can align the KPIs properly. So there are ways that the data is defined when you apply and supply your data to make sure that we're comparing apples with apples all the time. So we're going to look now at an example of a definition. So this is for productivity, and in here it will give you tips. So the part-time and overtime hours have to be converted to a full-time employee equivalent, so the calculation all works. The area covers from raw materials intake to the palletizer or the end of the packaging line. It's equally important what it doesn't include for. It doesn't include for the warehousing and sales and administration functions. There's too much variation in those functions, on-site, off-site, and all the rest of it. So they are excluded. And hopefully then we can align everybody so that the data is properly comparable. There's a definition for each KPI, but I'm just showing one as an example today. Then we talk about, I'd like to talk about how we handle that data now. So we'll be collecting the data in Excel. It's not delivered directly into our database. That's still manually done, and that is important to us. We still want to have an opportunity to sanity check the data. We can still handle large sets of data from a brewery group. But we want to be able to validate the source of the data as well and make sure that we've got a good secure system with valid data entered. Then our visualization tool, we're utilizing Microsoft Power BI, and we've tried to develop a dashboard here that's going to be easy to use and give you brief information that you need at a glance. And at this point in the presentation, I think it's time to try and have a look at the live system. So if you excuse me a moment, I'm going to transfer. To here. So I'm on the live system now. I'm going in so if you are a member of the club, you'd be able to go into here, and you are given an ID. So I've just picked ID 100, which is a round number. So we're looking at Brewery 100 in the list. And it tells a little bit on the dashboard here about how to use the club. Now, this has been a little slow when we're also doing the presentation, so I may skip to my other tabs if necessary. Up here in the right-hand corner, we've got the sorts that we mentioned, the geographical areas. So we can split up into those. We can search on one, other, or all of them. We've got our brewery capacities search over here. Now, when you come in, the default is based on the sectors that you're in. So this is a European brewery between 100,000 and 1 million hectolitres of production. So we'll just see how fast it is. Yes, not too bad. So if we go and look straight away at our KPIs, we are the brewery with the red band. So we can go into heat consumption here. If I hover over this band, it should tell me our KPI. And I can also look at the KPIs of the more efficient breweries above us. The width of this band is proportional to the quantity, and we can easily see at a glance where we fit in the tree, which is good. If we want to drill down even further, we can go to the title there. And it gives us a description over here that we are comparing our selected KPI against sales volume. So sales volumes are plotted along the bottom here. And our selected KPI, which is heat consumption, we have to remember the units, is plotted up the side here. So we can see that we're doing quite well in this brewery. We're in the bottom third, and we should be happy. We could also look at packaging. This brewery has a canning line. I'm going to use the tabs now. This is plotted again against the SK, against the sales volume. Let me start with the sales volume. So the sales volume is along the bottom axis again, and the utilization or the line efficiencies is what we're talking about up here on our y-axis. So we're sitting very much in the middle here. And if we look at the cumulative chart, you say, yes, we're in the middle band for this KPI. The KPIs of packaging are affected quite a lot by the number of SKUs. This particular submission didn't include the number of SKUs, so they don't appear in these graphs. But if you were, you'd be able to go to these charts and see how you compared to other breweries with a similar number of SKUs to yourself. So that's the live system. And just to be sure, I want to leave this now and go back to the presentation. We've got some slides which we can carry on looking at the type of things that we can search on. Excuse me. So if we start here, we're looking at brewery utilization, and we're in different sorts now. So this isn't necessarily the same brewery where the red dot is, but the important thing that we're trying to demonstrate here is you can see where the level of the top third, middle third, bottom third are. So 1/3 is below 50%, 1/3 is above 70%. And these are the kind of insights we can get from the data when we do a search. Important note on there about how we calculate the utilization. Of course, if you've got any kind of seasonal peak, you can't get 100% utilization. Here's another one regarding productivity. And productivity here shows quite a large variation. It's quite a scattered chart. But what we can see, interestingly, is down in this corner where we're not getting any economies of scale. So these are some of the larger breweries in this group, which we've sorted on, but they're not showing markedly improved productivity compared to the others. Extract loss is another one. This is again quite scattered, but we can say that to be in the best third, you need to be around this 6.3% level, which is useful information. Staying with extract loss, and now we've decided to plot not just against the sales volume, but against the brewery utilization, which is something that we can do with the tool. And we're seeing perhaps a trend where we're increasing on this red line, roughly speaking. What we're showing over here in this scattered chart is that members who are good with their heat consumption KPI are also good with their extract loss KPI. And maybe that's because this group of breweries have are nice modern breweries. And here we have insight and utilities. We'll not go through each one, but where do you need to be in the top third? And here are some figures in the sort that we were looking at here, which is the European sort. And we can look at these figures and say, well, this is where we need to be if we want to be in the top performing 1/3 of members. Utilities split out a bit. We can see a general kind of trend from high and right to low and left, where we are showing the economies of scale, better energy usage for the higher volume producers, which is what we'd probably expect. But again, you can see where your brewery will be on the chart. And we're always looking to improve. So we're open to where we can add new KPIs. It might be that adding more detail and separation, but it depends an awful lot on getting the data from the members. And so we mustn't make it too complicated, or it doesn't work. It may be better that we should look at maybe additional KPIs going forward, environmental KPIs, carbon footprint. These kind of things are all things that are being considered at the moment. So I hope we've answered the question, what the NBBC is all about. Coming back to the vision, expanding the knowledge base of the global beer and beverage industry, improving its efficiency and reducing environmental impact. So members, it can help determine how the brewing industry is doing as a whole. Is my brewery performing and achieving well? And a member can help himself to see where you want to improve, can give you a good steer. There's more details. It's a very brief overview. You can go to our website, simply search for niras.com/MBBC. And from there, there's another short introduction on the MBBC. And you can find out how to join and sign up for the club. It relies on the data that's provided. So clearly, the more people that sign up, the better the data is going to be. So it works better for everybody. And that's the end of my presentation at the moment. We're quite happy to take some questions, but I may have to defer answering some of them until after the webinar, but hopefully they won't be too complicated for me. Per, can I hand back to you?
Yes, and we have a couple of questions. The first one is on return on investment. It says, how do you manage change during the process? So I don't know if Nick, if you could answer that.
Yeah. So I mentioned about having the structure, about the master plan and the change control management. So There's a risk log which is maintained during the project and regularly kept under control. Very simple traffic light system operated on that. And the change control is also noted. And change doesn't necessarily lead to cost. It's just change. Whether or not it's an impact on time or whether or not it is an impact on cost, it still needs to be managed and logged. So it would be a very simple change management process, documentary package process, where nowadays with a lot of cloud-based systems, we allow clients to interact on our cloud-based project management tool in order to have access to that document and keep things under control, and regularly reviewed to see how many of the greens have been closed off, how many of the ambers still exist, and how many of the reds that still need to be challenged.
And we also have a question regarding the NBBC for Kevin. Do you propose to add further KPIs to the NBBC?
It's certainly something that's under consideration. Yes, I couldn't give you an estimate of when that would happen, but yes, I think we will be.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say, Kev, that discussion is being had with the members. So which of the members are coming to us and they're adding their wishes as to certain KPIs that they'd like to be added, and we're taking that into the taking that under review in order to add. I don't think we'll ever get to 20 KPIs that we're managing, but certainly the idea is to get to 10 or 12 in the years to come.
Okay, I think that was all the questions we have received so far. But if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact us and we will get back to you. Do you want to add anything?
Excellent. No, I'd just like to thank the BFBi for asking us to participate on this breakfast briefing. Just to reinforce that we're pleased to be part of this UK organisation which has been around for decades, and I think support the industry, and thank you for everybody's time this morning.